Emma, you don't have to force yourself to come to the wedding next week, okay?
She said this while looking after me at my house after I was discharged from the hospital. Going forward, we planned to have helpers come to assist, but since the application with the local government hadn't been processed yet, Mary, Isabella's husband, and others were taking turns coming to my house for the next few days. I wasn't sure how to respond to Emma. I worried that my current condition would be a burden at the wedding and didn't want anyone to feel awkward around me.
Losing your sight is unfortunate, but there are so many tools available nowadays that you can live just like anyone else.
It's only been a short time since she lost her sight, and the wedding is.
She'll be fine. It was a car accident, sure, but there weren't any major injuries. She can move around now, so she shouldn't miss it. Don't you want to see your daughter all dressed up? Oh, wait, you can't see, can you?
I couldn't see Isabella's expression, but I sensed she was stifling a laugh, and anger began to build within me. I stood up. "Take me to the bathroom," I said to Isabella. She grabbed my arm and led me to the bathroom. I was angry with her, but I felt that if I showed it, I might not survive in this new life. So I let her guide me, only to accidentally kick something soft along the way. A small gasp of
Bella!
came from Emily behind me. She had been doing something at my feet.
Oh, look at that! You just kicked Bella. With your eyesight gone, you really need to watch your step.
I had felt something soft, but Bella wasn't the kind of dog to bark or flee from approaching people.
And look at Emma's clothes. They're all wrinkled, aren't they? You can't see how to keep up appearances, can you?
In this world of complete darkness, I felt that Isabella was probably smiling. Holding back my frustration and trembling with anger deep in my chest, I forced out the words, "I will go to the wedding. My name is Emma, 56 years old. I have no intention of getting married and enjoy living a free life as a single woman. I go to work, come home to cook for myself, work out at the gym, and spend time reading. On my days off, I go to the movies. For me, it's a fulfilling life. However, my sister, who lives nearby, seems to see it differently. Her slightly condescending comments about my lifestyle sometimes get to me, but I'd say we maintain a good sisterly relationship. My sister, Isabella, occasionally shows up at my apartment unannounced, rummaging through my fridge or poking around my rooms and helping herself to anything she likes. Being 6 years younger, I've always doted on her, but as we've aged, she's become oddly bold. Still, knowing she has a family and financial struggles, I've decided to let her take food from my fridge without fuss, or so I thought. One day, Isabella showed up at my place without any warning, bringing along a white dog.
This is Bella. Isn't she cute?
She held up a little white chihuahua in a small cage. The chihuahua twitched its big ears, gave me a quick glance with its large eyes, then curled up and looked away. I vaguely replied, "I suppose so." Truthfully, I don't really like dogs. I was once chased by a large dog that roamed freely in our neighborhood as a child, and since then, I feel afraid even of small dogs. Behind Isabella, her daughter Emily sat watching the dog with a sad expression. I've known Emily since she was little. She's a beautiful, intelligent girl, much like her mother in appearance. Personality-wise, though, she's quite different. If I had to describe Isabella in one word, it would be arrogant, while Emily would be humble. Emily has always been kind to me, a dear niece whom I adore. Today, nudged by Isabella, she seemed to have something to ask of me, opening her mouth hesitantly.
Emma, we came here today because I have a favor to ask. Could you take care of Bella?
I tilted my head, momentarily lost, but then Isabella took the dog out of the cage, held it up, and practically shoved it into my arms.
Look at her. She's so cute, isn't she? You live alone, so she'd keep you company. Isn't that great?
I don't feel lonely at all, but after listening to the full story, here's what I learned. Emily started keeping Bella, a chihuahua, against Isabella's wishes, as Isabella dislikes dogs. However, Emily is about to get married and move out. She'd like to take Bella with her, but her fiancé is allergic to dogs, so she can't. Isabella's husband is a kind man, but he travels frequently for work, so there's no one else to care for Bella. Why doesn't Isabella just take care of her?
Just for 1 week. Please, just 1 week, okay?
I sighed softly. It was clear Isabella intended to leave Bella with me indefinitely, under the guise of just 1 week, but I couldn't help but pity the small dog, being so unwanted. So, I reluctantly agreed. Emily bowed her head repeatedly, saying,
Thank you, Emma.
as she stroked Bella's head with a look of lingering affection.
Keep next Sunday open, all right? I have a dog crate and supplies at my house, so you'll need to help me move them. I'll drive over and pick you up to bring everything back to your place.
After Isabella and Emily left, I noticed that Bella, who had been left behind, was trembling slightly on the living room floor, so I turned on the heater. Even as the room warmed up, Bella kept shivering, and when I gently touched her, she started trembling even more, her big eyes staring at me with a nervous look. It's not the cold making you shiver, is it? You're scared of me. Well, I'm a little afraid of you too, so I guess we're even. As I prepared Bella's food in the kitchen, she sat and watched me intently. Every time I moved, her little face followed, her big eyes fixed on me. Still, she remained seated on the floor, never approaching me. As night fell, I placed an old cushion I no longer used near Bella, and she struggled, with feeble movements, to climb onto it. Watching her finally make an effort to move, I absent-mindedly observed her as I watched TV, and then I realized why she had been sitting in one spot all along. I see. I lifted Bella's small body onto the cushion, and she buried her face in its softness with a look of satisfaction, eventually falling asleep. Though it wasn't obvious at first glance, there was something off about her hind legs. It seemed she had trouble walking and getting over obstacles, likely due to a congenital issue. It irritated me a bit that Isabella had left me to care for a dog that needed extra attention without explaining anything, but I also understood that bringing this little dog along would have been hard on Emily, especially with her upcoming marriage. I wanted her to be happy. And despite my dislike of dogs, Bella was so calm and silent that I found myself able to hold and pet her. When I returned home from work, Bella would be sitting on the cushion, watching me with her large, glossy eyes. She didn't wag her tail to greet me. Instead, she just sat there, gazing at me, radiating a mysterious, unreadable aura. Each day, I found myself drawn to Bella a little more. Time passed, and soon it was a clear day, just before Emily's wedding. I got into a car accident, and shards from the shattered windshield damaged my eyes, leaving me blind. I had been placed in a hospital bed, but when I regained consciousness, I didn't know where I was, nor did I realize I was blind. I only wondered why everything seemed dark, and then the doctor explained that I'd lost my sight, causing me to tremble uncontrollably. It felt like a surreal dream, not quite real. In the dark world around me, I traced each of my fingers one by one, reassuring myself of my presence, and I felt a sudden, overwhelming sadness. Being single, with my parents already deceased, Isabella, or rather, mostly her husband and Emily, took care of me in the hospital. My boss and a few colleagues came to visit and politely asked,
"How are you feeling?"
"I won't be able to continue working like this, so I'd like to resign." When I spoke those words, the atmosphere seemed to ease with a sense of relief, and I felt a slight weight lift off my shoulders. Isabella's husband carefully explained the support I could receive as someone now disabled and assured me of his ongoing help.
Emma, you don't have to push yourself to come to the wedding next week.
Emily said this while helping me around my home after I was discharged. Although I planned to have a helper visit, the application process hadn't gone through yet, so Emily and Isabella's husband would take turns helping me for a few days. I wasn't sure what to say to Emily. I worried that attending her wedding as I was would only burden her, and I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable on such an important day. I could sense Isabella moving briskly around me. As a caregiver who has experience with disabled clients, she was familiar with the routines and necessary details of my care. Not only did she assist with daily tasks, but she was also knowledgeable about disability applications and support systems, helping me in many ways. However, perhaps due to her familiarity with disabilities and the challenges of her work, her words to me were often tinged with a certain harshness.
It's unfortunate you lost your sight, but there are lots of handy tools these days. You can live just like anyone else.
Isabella, with a touch of excitement in her voice, proudly listed the names of assistive devices for visually impaired people, which enable communication without sight.
She's only just lost her sight. Maybe she could skip the wedding.
It'll be fine. It was a car accident, but she wasn't seriously injured, and she's already up and moving. Don't skip it. Don't you want to see your daughter on her big day? Oh, I forgot. You can't see.
I couldn't see the expression on Isabella's face, but I sensed that she was trying to stifle a laugh, and a surge of anger welled up within me. I stood up and said, "Take me to the bathroom." She took my arm and led me there, but I was painfully aware of how lost I felt in my own home. Without my sight, I had no sense of direction and couldn't move anywhere without help. I was angry at Isabella. Yet something told me that I couldn't survive by openly showing that anger, so I let her pull me along. Along the way, my foot accidentally kicked something soft, and from behind me, I heard Emily let out a small cry.
Bella!
She was doing something at my feet.
Oh dear! Bella was right under your feet, and you kicked her. You'll have to be careful with your steps now that you can't see.
I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't see anything. Had I really kicked Bella? I did feel something soft, but Bella wasn't the type of dog to bark or run away when people got close.
And look at your clothes, Emma. They're all wrinkled. Without your sight, I bet it's hard to keep up your appearance, isn't it?
In this world where I could no longer distinguish light from dark, I could feel Isabella smiling. Holding back my frustration, I struggled to keep my trembling anger deep within me and managed to say, "I will go to the wedding." Upon hearing that, Isabella expressed her thanks with a delighted tone, then added that she'd also like me to give a speech at the wedding. She was starting to get excited about the idea of making the ceremony a moving event, where the blind sister would attend to celebrate her daughter's marriage. Emily and Isabella's husband tried to stop her, but Isabella brushed them off, absorbed in her plans. Listening to her, I silently decided to let her feel a bit of the pain I was carrying. I gripped Isabella's hand firmly and smiled, saying, "I hope it's a beautiful ceremony." After that, I started visiting the hospital regularly, beginning rehabilitation under the guidance of a doctor and receiving psychological support to adapt to the loss of my vision. To improve my quality of life as someone who was now completely blind, they suggested I use assistive devices and technology. I felt a spark of hope as I learned about things like braille labels, braille watches, and the latest technology that allows various machines to operate by voice commands. I also began working on skills for daily tasks like housework, shopping, and cooking without relying on sight, forcing myself to get into the habit of touching everything around me. My first goal was to be able to move freely within my room, so I worked hard on training my sense of direction, but I still occasionally ended up kicking Bella by accident. When I lost my sight, Emily had said,
"I'll look for someone who can adopt Bella."
but now, Bella's presence had become a source of comfort for me. "No. Please, Emily. I'll take proper care of her myself."
"But you're going through so much yourself, and Bella has trouble with her legs."
"I know. But I just really want to stay with her." On those lonely nights, I would reach out and find Bella by touch, pulling her close and letting her snuggle under the covers with me. Stroking her quiet, injured back legs became part of my nightly routine. I was a person with a visual impairment, and Bella was a dog with a mobility issue. I couldn't prepare Bella's food by myself anymore, nor could I carry her out for a walk. Bella, on the other hand, had little chance of becoming a guide dog. She could barely walk, and she had never even barked once. It sometimes felt as if neither of us was needed by anyone in this world, and I hugged Bella's small body tightly in response to that loneliness. That night, the rain began to fall, and the sound of raindrops echoing faintly in my ears made it hard to sleep. I buried my face into Bella's fur, focusing on the steady rhythm of her heartbeat beneath her warm coat, and finally, I was able to calm myself enough to drift off to sleep. And then, on the day of Emily's wedding, I decided to make my way to the venue with the assistance of a guide helper, part of a service called mobility support that I regularly relied on. "All right. I'll see you again shortly," I said, stepping away from the guide helper. I wanted to approach the entrance on my own, using my white cane. Soon after, one of the venue staff spoke to me, guiding me to a waiting room inside. Isabella tapped me on the shoulder as I entered.
Wow! Did you make it all the way here without tripping?
She also said,
Listen, today, I want to wow everyone with your appearance. Could you say a few words about how you've adapted to this new situation with the support of everyone around you?
I frowned. Adapted to a new situation?
Exactly. I'll be right beside you for support. Emily and her husband are also starting a new life, right? Just say something like how you're inspired by their new beginning. I'll wrap it up nicely for you.
As I fell silent, Isabella stepped away for a moment and soon returned, pressing a small glass into my hand.
It's alcohol,
She said. I immediately tried to push the glass back to her. I don't want it. Since losing my sight, I hadn't had a drink. It wasn't that I disliked it, I just hadn't felt the urge to drink. Isabella pushed the glass back to my chest firmly.
It would be rude not to drink at a celebration, don't you think?
She leaned close, whispering into my ear.
Hey, Emma. Don't you think people with disabilities are kind of like caterpillars?
What?
They're unsettling to look at, and if you mess with them, you might get a rash. For you to get by, you absolutely need people's support. You're like a caterpillar, but you have to prove you're not poisonous.
I felt goosebumps rise across my skin. Isabella laughed, patting my shoulder as if she'd just made an innocent joke.
Guess I went too far with the caterpillar comparison.
I nearly dropped the glass I was holding. Eventually, Isabella led me to the bridal room where Emily was getting dressed.
Sitting over there in a beautiful, pure white dress is Emily.
She described.
Look at her. Isn't she gorgeous?
As Isabella left my side to walk over to Emily, I felt a bit lost and reached out to steady myself against the wall. After waiting there for a while, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was the male guide helper who had brought me here.
Wait! Supervisor! What are you doing here?
The truth was, this man was Isabella's supervisor at work. Normally, he didn't do any direct caregiving, but I had specifically requested his help for today. Unlike Isabella, he was always gentle and kind when speaking to me. But now, he spoke in a stern voice unlike any I'd heard from him before.
Isabella, I've heard what's been going on. It sounds like you've been treating Emma very disrespectfully.
Disrespectful? Come on! We're sisters! I might be a bit blunt, but...
Her supervisor interrupted sharply.
Don't lie to me!
Since my accident and subsequent blindness, Isabella had often made belittling remarks toward me, and I'd reported all of it to her supervisor. On top of that, it was Isabella's reckless driving that had caused the car accident in the first place, yet she had apparently been telling everyone that it was my fault.
Mom told me the accident happened because of you, Emma. She said you pressured her into overtaking the car in front because she was driving too slowly.
Wait! That's... I mean...
In the darkness, I could feel Isabella's unease. After the accident, I remembered comforting Isabella, who seemed burdened with guilt over causing my blindness with her driving. Don't worry about it. It wasn't anyone's fault. I'd told her. But learning from a relative that she'd been shifting the blame onto me had made me realize I didn't need to hold back with her anymore. I reported every one of her actions to her supervisor, asking him to take appropriate measures. Furious, he had come in person today to confront her. Isabella's supervisor turned to her and said sternly,
As someone working in social welfare, your behavior is inexcusable. We will review this matter for disciplinary action.
At that, Isabella suddenly shouted back.
Are you kidding me?
As if her outburst were a signal, Isabella's husband and Emily's fiancé entered the room. In fact, their arrival at this moment was prearranged between me and Isabella's supervisor. We had planned to confront her here, using this setting as a chance to hold her accountable. Going all out, we'd even gathered several relatives who'd been invited to the wedding, crowding the bridal room. One of my relatives shouted,
You caused Emma's blindness with your reckless driving, and this is how you treat her. Shame on you.
While many relatives berated her, Isabella's husband raised his voice, saying,
Everyone, I apologize for all of this.
Then he turned to Isabella.
Isabella, I want a divorce.
Isabella was stunned.
What? What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind?
Isabella's husband continued.
You've been talking terribly about your own sister just because she became disabled. If I ever got sick or something, you'd probably treat me the same way. I can't stand to be with someone like that anymore.
Isabella, shocked by the abruptness of his declaration, raised her voice in protest, but under the barrage of criticism around her, she cried out and rushed toward me.
What's wrong with you, Emma? It's Emily's wedding day, and you're trying to ruin it?
That was never my intention. I just wanted everyone to understand how I feel.
But you didn't have to choose today.
Emily stepped forward.
Actually, Mom, I was the one who suggested confronting you like this today.
Isabella was speechless, her voice trailing off in a weak.
What?
Emily, too, had been deeply disturbed by her mother's treatment of me. She addressed Isabella with strong condemnation.
I never want anything to do with you again.
And said,
Do you remember the first day I brought Bella home?
Bella, you mean the day you brought home that stray dog?
Emily began to tell the story. Several years ago, Emily had found a white chihuahua abandoned by the riverbank, with no collar. She brought the dog home, only to realize the reason for its abandonment. Both of its hind legs were paralyzed and barely moved. They took it to a veterinarian, who said the paralysis was due to a genetic condition, with no cure. Trusting that her mother, who worked in welfare, would care for the dog with compassion, Emily had said,
I want to keep her.
But her mother had responded with a look of clear distaste.
You told me you didn't understand why anyone would bother to take in a dog with a disability. I'll never forget that. You barely took care of her and left her caged up the whole time I was at school. Eventually, her front legs grew weak too.
Now, Bella just sat quietly on a cushion, neither barking nor moving. The lack of mobility had further weakened her front legs, leaving her almost entirely immobile.
This has nothing to do with what's happening now.
Just leave. This is my wedding day, and I want to spend it with the people I actually want by my side.
Isabella seemed to have lost all words in the face of Emily's harsh rebuke. After a moment, she turned and left the room, her footsteps heavy. I couldn't see the expressions on everyone's faces, but there was a tense, uncomfortable atmosphere hanging over the room. My heart ached, realizing the kind of scene I'd created on what was supposed to be a joyous wedding day. I could only bow my head in silence, feeling overwhelmed by guilt. Before long, Emily's fiancé said,
Everyone.
and called out,
we're going to continue with the wedding.
He then addressed the guests.
We apologize for the trouble. But we don't need to let this stop us here.
He continued.
Emily and I are committed to walking through life together, with a love that won't be shaken by any small obstacles like this. In marriage, challenges may come our way, but we'll treat them as opportunities to deepen our love and keep moving forward.
Emily stood beside her fiancé.
Everyone, please help us make this day special by overcoming this trouble and celebrating with smiles.
As the bride and groom bowed deeply, a round of applause erupted from the room. Standing quietly by the wall, I clapped softly and whispered, Emily, congratulations on your wedding. Thanks to the couple's determination, the ceremony proceeded smoothly, and it became a truly happy beginning for them. Later, at her workplace, an investigation revealed that Isabella had acted disrespectfully toward other disabled individuals besides me. She was fired and forced to move far away after being served with divorce papers. Even though Isabella attempted to find another job in welfare, rumors of her prejudice against people with disabilities had spread to other companies in the industry, effectively shutting the door to reemployment. Just once, after the wedding, I received a call from her.
How's my life now? Are Emily and the others doing well?
After some polite small talk, Isabella fell silent for a long time before finally saying,
I regret blaming you for the car accident and telling everyone it was your fault.
And said,
I've gone through life without any special hardships. Finally, my daughter got married, and I thought my life was perfect. But that accident, it was the only blemish in my life. So,
I hung up in the middle of her words. I felt there was nothing left to say. As for me, I've begun adjusting to my new reality. I've found there are many support services in the community that I was completely unaware of when I was able-bodied. With kind assistance from various organizations, I've started training for daily living tasks. I began with learning to navigate without stumbling inside my home, followed by basic hygiene tasks like brushing my teeth and cutting my nails. Eventually, my life became filled with all sorts of training, arranging items to save time when looking for them, learning to cook and do laundry, and more. In today's world, smartphones and tablets have advanced voice recognition features, so I can enjoy music and other things without complicated steps. Sitting back in my chair, I slowly close my eyes. Pleasant music fills the room, seeping into my chest. A soft, furry something brushes past my bare feet, and as I reach down, a small tongue licks my fingers. I gently stretch out my hand, hoping to find Bella, but she isn't there. Too tired to get up from my chair, I give up and lean back, when suddenly, I hear a faint sound, a whimper from Bella. It takes me a moment to realize that it's her voice, something I've never heard before. When I instinctively stand up, she whimpers again. I follow her soft whimpers toward the window. Once I find her by touch and pick her up, I feel the warm sunlight on my cheeks through the curtains. It's a beautiful day. Shall we go for a walk together? Holding Bella, I open the front door, and the warm sunlight shines down on both of us. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.